Everybody. Ben and Dan here again. Uh, Today, we wanted to talk about the financial institutions, banks, insurance companies, all of the above. And there's really four rules of financial institutions, that we talked about. Number one, they want and they need our money, obviously. Number two is they want our money on a regular and ongoing basis. uh, Number three is they want to hold on to it as long as possible when they do get a hold of it. And number four is they want to give back as little as possible. So you know Dan, we'll just kind of go through these and just give some examples of some of those strategies that they use in action, because I think if you know these, and if can learn more about money and instead use their strategies against them, then I think you can be a little more successful with money. So really, so that first one, I mean, they want and need our money. Banks use our money. They obviously are in the lending business. And Dan, just talk a little bit about how the banks use our money to actually create income for themselves.
Yeah. I would also add, banks, you said banks and insurance companies, but also just the federal government and big corporations, right?
Yeah.
Those are the four rules. And you kind of talked about it, but why is it important? Why should we even be aware of these four rules? Well, and you kind of said to use it against them, but really just to start to use the four rules, right? Because unfortunately, and maybe you're asking yourself, like, why is it so hard to get ahead? I'm doing everything I can. I'm working. I'm trying to save. And it just seems like, why is it so hard? Because the rules that they teach the normal people on what to do with their money is not the rules that these big corporations and banks live by, right? So the four rules Ben just talked about, you want to learn these, you need to be aware of them, and then you need to start asking yourself, like, which set of rules are you playing by, right? And so I'll answer your question in a second, but a lot of the rules they teach the normal people is put your money somewhere, leave it alone for a long time, try to accumulate a big pile, and cross your fingers that it's big enough down the road, right? But those four rules, they want the money on a regular basis. They want to hold on to it for a long time, and they want to give it back slowly or not at all. When we teach people, we call that like a velocity of money. They want to keep the money coming in, and they want to keep it moving, right? So that phrase, if you work with us, we call it velocity of money, and it's what the wealthiest people of the world have learned, and why they have more money than most people. So to answer your question, and an example of how the banks use rule number one, they want your money. Okay, so think about a bank, right? What service does a bank offer you? Are they selling vehicles? Are they selling, like, what do they give? Why do they get such nice, fancy, tall buildings? They obviously have to provide some awesome product, right? No, I mean,
Right.
obviously, I'm not here out to say we should get rid of all banks, but they literally give out money that they don't have, right? So that's the question.
Yep.
They encourage us to deposit our money, and they give us 0.05% return, right? And they penalize
Right.
you if you get an overdraft, and they penalize you if you want to wire it, and they penalize you if you want to, pull it out too fast. So they collect fees and give a very little rate of return back. And then what do they turn around and do when, I put my $100 in and Ben comes in a week later and asks for a loan? Do they give him a loan for 0.05% return?
No, absolutely not.
Right? So they collect it, and they give out like a 0.05 return to me for storing my money there. And then they're able to turn around and lend it out at a much, much higher rate of return. So they literally, it's not, I'm not saying it's evil or bad or anything. I'm just saying you need to start thinking, that's pretty slick. How do I start acting like a bank where I can get my money moving and start using it to earn interest instead of always paying the interest, right? And so, yeah, lots of ways to, they want the money. They incentivize us. One really easy example I like to share about how they incentivize us to give them our money is a 15-year mortgage versus a 30-year mortgage, right? Because if you lock in a 30-year mortgage, for those of you that have bought a house and gone through the process, the bank's going to say, hey, the interest rate's a little higher if you do a 30. We'll give you a cheaper interest rate if you do a 15-year mortgage, and look at all the interest you're going to save. So why would a bank encourage you to do a 15-year? Do you think they're losing money?
No. The faster they get that money back, the faster they can go turn it into another income stream.
Yep. So they want that money. The 15-year payment is going to be higher than the 30-year payment. So they're encouraging us to give that money back faster, and then turn around and write more mortgages and get that income working again. And so I'm not here to say all 15-year mortgages are bad or anything. It's just we want to start thinking, how do we keep control of our money longer and get it working for us, get it to produce some income and interest. So
well, that just when you think about that, like, it makes, logically you might think, well, it makes more sense to pay it off earlier because I'm going to pay less interest, right? But a question to think about is, if you have a paid off home, who controls the equity in that home? You don't. I mean, it's to access the equity in that home, you either got to sell it, or you got to go back to the bank and ask them for a line of credit or a loan. Mm-hmm. And they ultimately have control of if they're going to give you a line of credit or not. So even by paying it off, you don't necessarily have control of that money, that equity in your home. And like Dan's saying, it doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just a matter of what your goals are, and also, how much control do you want to give up, to the institutions. So,
well, and how much is your knowledge base to earn more than the return? Meaning, if you could lock in a 30-year mortgage at 3%, I know rates are higher right now, but if we back up a year, if you can lock in debt at 3% and know how to make 8%, you can essentially, get ahead using the bank's money. But to Ben's point, let's say you pay off the house. Here's another thing to think about, and not to turn this into a mortgage conversation, but if you got a paid off house and the market corrects and the values of homes come down 30%, who loses the money? You or the bank, right? The client with the paid off house then loses that equity, versus if you got a mortgage, at 80% and you got control of all the money working somewhere else for you, and the house value drops 30%, you thankfully still have your money that's working for you. So the bank actually loses the money, and you just keep making your payments over time. So you can keep your money working for you as opposed to locking it into equity. But anyway, that's getting a little deeper on mortgage. We can talk about that.
Right. No, exactly. No, but I think that's a good example. I mean, if you want to understand more about how the banks do that, that might be a topic for another day, just about banks and the fractional reserve banking system, and how much of every dollar they actually go and lend out. It's pretty amazing how far that goes. But I mean, the other thing, that really comes to mind is, they want to obviously hold on to it as long as possible and get it regularly. So, when you think of, the way they incentivize that, contribute to your 401k on a weekly basis. Hey, we'll automatically enroll you, and you actually have to. They kind of make it a little difficult to opt out of it. It's actually not super easy to opt out a lot of times, and it just is an automatic, comes out of your check. You don't think about it, and they hold on to it for a really long time. If you want to access it before you're 59 and a half, you're going to get penalized. You're going to pay taxes. And in the meantime, that's just money that's going out of, and I'm not saying that 401ks are bad, but if you understand, hey, this is what, they preach and kind of what they want you to do, rather than having as much control over it as possible. So that's another thing that just comes to mind. And that fourth one, giving back as little as possible. We're taught, build up this huge pile, and if you don't want to run out, in retirement, you only take that 3 to 4% earnings off of your big pile of money there, so that you don't run out of money. And so that's, again, they want to hold on to it and have control of that money for as long as possible. Dan, and maybe you can talk to that a little bit, but they scare people that, like, hey, if you take out more than that, like, you're going to run out of money. But in reality, if you have the right strategies in place, you can, most of the time can spend down your money and still enjoy more.
Yeah, pretty much any financial product. I mean, the 401k is not really a product. It's more of a vehicle, and it's controlled and owned by the government, right? So we talked about the government as one of the big players that plays by these rules. 401k is a great example. You already hit on them, but they want your money, so we're going to give you a match, right? We're going to incentivize you to put money into this account, and we're going to get it regularly, because that's how you build up a big pile. We're going to hold it for a long time. You're going to get penalized and taxed, so don't touch it. And then when you go to get it back, most people, and be honest with yourself if you're listening, how well do you know your game plan to get your money out of your 401k? Most people I meet, they're like, yeah, I think I got this 401k thing, and I don't really know. Do I withdraw it, or do I roll it over? What's that all mean? So I would encourage you, and and as we're talking through this, like, learn to be able to answer those 4 rules we're talking about, and maybe ask yourself, how can I start playing by these rules? How can I get income coming in regularly? How can I get a game plan to store it in a place that I have control of it? And how can I have a game plan to spend and enjoy all of it on my terms, and not be subject to these rules, and always the victim of these rules, right? Another great example is term insurance. I have term insurance, I sell term insurance, but I'm definitely not in the ballpark that only buy term insurance, because term insurance, it's 99% of the time never pays out, right? So they literally, even though it's super cheap and sometimes necessary for a short-term solution, it's not, it's regular payments out the window, right? Really, the only way you get money back is if you die prematurely, and you hope you never collect, right? That means you died prematurely. So, and 99% of term policies never pay out, right? So they obviously have a good game plan to never give that money back, right?
Yeah.
So those are, pretty much every financial institution and every product falls into those rules somehow. And I'm not saying we can't use products, right? We sell them, we talk about them, we teach people all the time, but you want to start getting a game plan of how can you have more control over your money, and how can you guarantee, as best you can, being able to get a better, use and enjoyment of the money in the back end. So
yeah, absolutely.
If you're listening and you're like, dude, this is way over my head, like, that's the stuff we try to teach people. So, reach out or ask questions. And, if anything was exciting today, but over your head, drop us a message and we can try to clarify, or we can jump on a phone call.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing too, is like every financial product out there, whether it's investments, different vehicles, insurances, all that stuff has a use and it has its place. But if you don't have the strategy for making it all work together, then you're going to fall prey to those rules, and you're going to fall victim to having your money eroded by those guys trying to get a hold of it. So it's more about the strategy than about what product is better than this other product. So that's the biggest thing to learn, and that's what we help people learn is, what do you have, how is it working for you, how can it work better for you. So yeah, well, hopefully that was helpful today. And yeah, like Dan said, just shoot us a message, or give us a call if you have questions or want to learn more about the process. And yeah, look forward to next week. And we got plenty of other topics to talk about.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, everyone, have a great Friday. Enjoy your weekend.